What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Collector's Outpost. I am John. Well, today we are weathering and wrapping my Kestis Cere lightsaber. This was a heck of a little project because I tried a new product to strip some of the finish and everything off, which did not work, by the way, and I did not really know how to handle this wrap. But the good thing about doing these kind of videos is that you learn new things, new techniques about doing certain things, and by the end of this video I figured out a few different ways to do this kind of crisscross pattern, and things I liked about this one and things I would improve about doing it again. Alright, so let's get into it. We do have to strip down all these parts and prep everything for weathering. It is probably the single most annoying part about weathering any lightsaber is stripping everything down to the aluminum. Now, you'll see me use a product called aluminum black, and that will react to the aluminum on the hilt here, but you have to get every ounce of paint and finish off of the hilt because it's a chemical and it reacts to the aluminum, but it has to be raw. There cannot be anything on it. No finish, no paint, no grease, no oil, nothing. It has to be stripped down to bare aluminum. Alright, so I usually use oven cleaner. This time I'm actually going to use a product. This is actually paint stripper, and it was recommended from somebody at Home Depot, so I figured I'd give it a try. He said it's pretty damn toxic, so we will see. And I'm not doing any of the black pieces. We're just going to strip this down and get this down to like a raw aluminum so I can weather it up a little bit. Now, I actually want to kind of preserve this color, so I think I'm going to try to put a little bit of paint tape on this and maybe even some extra clay just to kind of make sure it stays clean. And I'm also going to do that with the black parts here and in here because it's a nightmare to try to get this out. It seems like there's like little screws obviously in here that we're gonna need Allen wrenches to get out, so I'm not even going to tackle that. So let me start with putting some clay inside of these parts here and basically hope for the best. I don't know what this paint stripper is gonna do. It might eat this right out. I really don't know. So we're all cleared up there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of putty on in here. All right, so we are covered up there and there. All right, so I think I'm going to start with the tape on the outside here. And just for the hell of it, I'm going to kind of wrap a little bit of this putty around and then try to get it into that crevice just a little bit to try to keep as much as that stripper off that orange there. All right, that's good enough, whatever. Going to use some gloves because I don't want this crap on my hands. Now, I'm going to put some of it in a mason jar, just so I can close that back up and only use a little bit that's in there. All right, honestly, that doesn't smell nearly as bad as I thought it was. It kind of smells like paint, honestly. All right, let's start with this. Paint, maybe glue. Smells a little bit like glue too. Now I'm going to put a nice thick coat of this on here. It's almost like a gel. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, stuff is slippery. All right, let's let that sit for about 15 minutes and we'll come back. And while we're waiting for everything to strip off, if it's gonna strip off, let's play with some doggies. Watch out there, mama. Here's some corn beans. Hello, babies. Hi. Hi. You good boy? Yes, you are. What are you doing over there, Kona? All right, 15 minutes is up. Let's see if this did anything. The goal is to get this pretty much all dull. However, let's see.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure this works. This didn't really take at all. I think the oven cleaner actually works better. This didn't do anything. Alright, I do think I have some oven cleaner in the garage. I think we're gonna just kind of wipe this stuff down a little bit and give it another go and just see what happens. Alright, I did find some Easy Off. Let's just give this a try and see what happens. Alright, so the oven cleaner works fantastically. I mean, you could even see the black bleeding out from the insides over there. It's actually pulling up some of the black from inside, apparently. You know, we got some in there. The hell with that expensive paint stripper crap I just bought. Alright, now we're just going to try to get as much of this crud off of here. And then we're going to have to do some sanding. Oh yeah. Strip that right down to the aluminum. Easy Off just works so fantastic. And it's easy. So, I'll never stray again, Easy Off. Just have a little bit of water here. Gonna rinse some of that crud off too. I might actually just put a little bit more Easy Off on there, let it sit on the side in a bit. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of Easy Off again on here while I'm cleaning off the other parts again. Beautiful. Alright, so that little extra Easy Off stripped off all the finish there. So we are good to go. This might benefit from another coat. Let's give this another coat. Just going to use a little 400 grit. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use 1000 grit sandpaper to basically just smooth this out as much as I can. Because the 400 is really going to kind of dig in there. And this will, you know, just kind of even out the grain. All right, that is pretty darn good, I think. All right, well, I think our parts are all prepped for some weathering.
All right, let's start with aluminum black, and we're gonna need our Scott scrub brush. Toss some of that aluminum black in a mason jar and start painting it on like paint. Now, as long as this is nice and raw, you got off all the finish and any kind of paint of any kind that is on this, you'll immediately see the metal start to tarnish and darken up. It's actually a really cool process to see the chemical react to metal like that. I feel like a mad scientist. Now, I am wondering that if I can time all of this stuff right to a thunderstorm and I can get myself struck by lightning, will I turn into the Flash?
Tune into the next episode of The Collector's Outpost and see John sacrifice his life to science.
So this little part on the side here, you can see it did not get any Easy Off on it. So it did not strip down and it did not tarnish. That's what will happen. So you have to get every bit of paint and finish off. Now we have all the aluminum black on. We're just going to start scrubbing away. Go up and down, sideways, circular motions. Don't stay one direction. You want it all over the place. It should kind of look messy. It's a little old, it went through battle, it's been scraped on the floor, banged around. Oh, and keep this in mind. Aluminum black will react to aluminum. If you have brass parts, like the neck of Obi-Wan Kenobi, there is brass black. So you'll have to get brass black to tarnish the brass. Alright, I think that looks pretty darn good. We're a little darker at the top of the emitter, how I like it. So it's got that kind of burnt, ashy look at the top there. And let's work our way through the rest of the body. Now you can see on the ring, it's taking more to certain spots and less to others. And that's fine, I'm gonna leave it just like that. I think that's just indicating that there was a little bit of finish or something still left on that part, but it actually looks really good, so all good. Now these parts are taking really, really well to the chemical, so these were stripped down to the bare bone aluminum. Wipe off some of the excess here, and then we'll start scrubbing away with our scrub brush. Now, you could do this one time, you could do this maybe 2 times, 3 times. It just depends on how dark and how dingy you want the metal to look. I've done a lot of single coats and a few double coats just to make certain things maybe a little darker, but a lot of times I'll go back with some black acrylic and I'll add some into corners or some burnt sienna for some rust indications. Now this looks really, really good, and this is one single coat. So, you know, you may want to go back and take a little bit more off. If you take too much off, again, you can just grab the aluminum black again, put another coat on, and start the scrubbing all over again. Now this aluminum black process has already brought this thing to life. It has brought it from something that looked more toyish to something that looked like a real world battle weapon. Now that initial aluminum black process is one of my favorites. It really, already, as you can see, kicks it up 10 notches from what it originally looked like. Now here's where things started getting a little annoying for me because I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how I wanted to do this. I really didn't have any direction, so I just kind of went for it. Now I knew I did not want these, like normally, to overlap each other. So I lined them up edge to edge, no overlapping, to get my in and out cut marks. Now I do have a full wrap video to understand the ins and outs of measuring the needed length and getting your in and out cut marks. I'll link that in the description and at the end of the video as well. Now, trying to figure this out that I've never done before with this crisscross pattern, with this contact cement, I didn't really need to worry because if I screwed it up the first time, I could just kind of peel it off and it's easy to clean up. You just kind of rub this stuff off. It's just kind of rubbery and it doesn't really ruin anything. So if I screwed it up, I can pop it off and start again. I mean, worst comes to worst, if I screw the leather up because I cut it too short or it's too thin or whatever, I'll just buy a couple more rolls. It's not that expensive. It's 10 bucks per roll, and you get usually enough in one roll for 2 hilts. So I'll put direct links for this also down in the description so you can check out their leather wraps. They have tons of different colors. This one's called Mystic Brown, and it's nice, but this is probably one of those things, like I was saying, I would do different on the next round. It's a little bit darker than I was hoping, and it's very clean looking. Now, I also have a roll of Sundance 2300 that I think if I wind up doing this again, this is probably going to be the one I use. And the reason for that, it's kind of crackly. It almost kind of looks pre-weathered in a sense. It has a little bit of highlights and darker tones and everything. And you'll see during this video that I kind of try to emulate that look a little bit more by adding some paint on top of this wrap to add some of those highlights and shadows to make it kind of pop just a little bit more. So right now I'm getting the length ins and outs. So here's an in mark and here is the out mark, and that will be my cut line. Now try to take your time when you're doing this. You want to make sure that you get the length right. You don't want to cut it too short or a little too long and then you have to cut it after you glue it down. And then we'll cut straight across from the in mark and the out mark. And bam. Now this is such a short piece, I'm just going to put the glue directly right on the hilt itself. Alright, and there we go. We've got our base wrap put on. Now at this point, this is where it got even more confusing for me because I didn't know where I wanted to take the next step. So we have to work on that kind of crisscrossy pattern. So I took the rest of the wrap here and I kind of cut that in half because I didn't want the crisscrosses to be too thick. Now measuring this thing and lining it up and figuring out the angle that would be best for it to wrap around so you get at least 2 or 3 crisscrosses, that was a little tricky. This is another piece that on my next round of this, I would do a little bit different. You can see I'm kind of measuring the angle here. I'm trying to figure out how many wraps I'll get from this angle. On my next go around on this, I'm going to make this angle a little deeper So I get a couple of more wraps on this, and that would make the crisscross patterns a bit tighter. But again, using contact cement, you're not really ruining anything on the hilt. You could just peel this stuff off down the line. I gotta tell you, it truly is amazing the things that go through your head when you're trying to figure something out. Because you're like, oh, this is working, but then as you're doing it, you're like, I could have done it like this or like that. But that's what makes the creative world so fun. There really is no way to do this. I mean, who's to say like, well, this is not what my version looks like, or that's what your version looks like. So if you want to skip this step altogether and just do the standard overlapping wrap, hey, do that. I wanted to use this video as an opportunity of just kind of learning something new and trying to figure out a different way of doing the same thing I do all the time. Now, if anybody knows of any tutorials of somebody else that's really good at this, doing this style wrap with this crisscross for the Cal Kestis thing, add it in the comments below. It's always great to share this information with the whole community. I don't think I've come across anybody doing this kind of crisscross wrap pattern on YouTube anywhere as a tutorial, so I'm kind of just really winging this myself and just making this thing work. Alright, so now we're adding the second part, and this will be the wrap that adds that crisscross look. And it came out okay. I don't think it's perfect. I think it could have been better, but again, as a creative thing, I mean, maybe this is just how mine looks, you know what I mean? But until I find a better way to do this actually worked out pretty well. Now keep in mind, once you do the top part, you have to do the smaller part here. And I did kind of abandon that really tiny thin section at the top there, which you'll see in a minute. But this worked out really well. And this is the piece that will cross over and add the crisscross to this section. Alright, putting this back together, I do add a wrap to that tiny section here because there is supposed to be one there, but I'm not going to go crazy and add the crisscross pattern. I'm just going to do one overlap like this. Give it a snip, add some glue, and pop this bad boy on. And there we go, we're going to leave it like that. Now I take a little bit of 400 sandpaper just to some of the edges here, just to try to ruffle it up a little bit so it's not so clean cut from the scissor. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm noticing that I'm liking the highlights and everything. Like I said, this leather wrap was a little dark, and it was fine, but it was just too clean and everything. And as I was doing this, you could see that it's adding some weathering and highlights to it. So what I decided to do after this process was get some black acrylic paint, and we're going to add some washes, and then we're going to add some highlights. The goal here is to darken down some of the corners, things underneath, and then I'm going to go back with some burnt sienna and add some highlights to the high parts and the corners. And then maybe put another black wash over it to tone it all down. Alright, so now we're going to lay in some burnt sienna. This will help kind of bring out the edges and the high parts. Now we're going to kind of do this kind of like dry brushing. We're not going to put so much. We're not going to just like glob the paint on there or anything. We're going to put it here and there and then kind of dab and brush everything off. You can see how this is actually starting to really work well with that kind of black wash up to under it. You can see some darker tones. You can see the original brown. Now some of this burnt sienna is starting to really bring out the top of it. Now I do want this to kind of feel somewhat natural, so you don't want anything really standing out too bright, because then it's going to look really weird and look really painted. You want it to look like it just kind of got scuffed up, dirtied up, weathered down over the years. Alright, this is looking really good, so we're just going to top it off with another top coat of black wash, just to kind of bring it all together. Alright, yeah, I think that looks really good. So we got the highlights in there, we've got the darker tones in there, and now we've got that top black wash that just kind of pushes it all in together. I'm really digging this. This actually worked out really well. Now again, I think if I do this over, I'm probably going to use that other wrap I showed you, the Sundance 2300. It kind of already looks worn and weathered down already. But hey, overall, I think for my first go with this style of wrap, this came out pretty good. I like finding new little things like this that change up the normal for me and make you think and experiment a little bit, and you learn a new technique. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and let me know if you have any tips and tricks for a wrap like this, because I'd be very interested to find out. And while you're down there, hit that like, subscribe, and notification button for upcoming videos. Well, this is my weathered Cal Kestis Cere lightsaber. Art Sabers was kind enough to send this over to me for a review, and I'll put a direct link down below and at the end of this video to watch the full unboxing. Alright, thanks for hanging out, and until next time, my friends, be safe and kind out there in the world. See ya!